meeting. We really appreciate everyone being here today. Um, we understand it's busy halfway through the semester, um, trying to work everything on it, but we really appreciate you guys being here, taking a time out of your day to be here. I know that we have a couple new people joining us today, so I would love to go through a couple introductions. So just to make sure I know everyone here. By the way, for those who don't know me, my name is Luis Sanchez. I'm a senior at Central Connecticut State University. I'm studying management informational systems. I'm in my last year, so I'll be finishing up soon. Um, I'm currently leading as chair of the student advisory committee, and I also serve on another couple leadership roles at my university. So I'm just happy to be here, happy to talk to you guys today, and let's get right into it. Give me 1 second. I'm just pulling out the agenda, and we'll get right started with. We're gonna start with roll call. Just to make sure we have quorum, that way we can go through our agenda. So I'll get started. Charter Oak, I believe.
I'm present. Donna Wagner with Charter Oak.
Hey, Donna.
Hi.
Eastern Connecticut State University.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Southern Connecticut State University. All right. Western Connecticut State University. Okay. Asnagtak Cheyenne's here. Capital Community College.
Yeah.
Perfect. Gateway.
Right, Julia Harris.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, man?
Good, thank you. Housatonic.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Manchester. Okay. Middlesex.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Naugatuck.
Hi, I have a new mic now, and I'm present.
Awesome.
No, I'm President Victor.
Perfect. So we got Victor and Nia today. Great. Northwestern.
Can anyone hear me by chance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Dakota here from Northwestern.
Hi, Dakota. How are you?
Good.
Norwalk. I think Letitia's. Hi, Letitia. Three Rivers. Okay, should be joining you soon. Tungstens.
Here.
How are you, Cameron?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. I think you are. And then Quinnebug Bali.
Present.
Awesome. Perfect, guys. So I believe we have quorum. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This is great. Great start of this Friday morning. With that being said, we got two people coming in today. I know Chelsea's here today as well. And then we can move into discussions a little bit later on. But I wanted to get the chancellor here today, just so you guys can ask him questions regarding, there's a lot of media out there currently about like the perception of the university, what's going on, right? So I just wanted to, you guys have a chance to ask him directly whatever questions you guys have, and he can talk to you more about it. So with that being said, Chancellor Chang, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wrestled with a little audio blip for a second. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good. So look, I'll jump right into it. First, I want to thank all of you as student leaders again. Your leadership is incredibly important. As you've heard me say before, I'll say it over and over again. Some of you testified the other night on behalf of CSCU, representing yourselves and your fellow students and your institutions, and that's, again, it's the most powerful thing. I wanted to speak to some of the, again, what's been in the media, what's been kind of circulating in other ways about things related to me and to the system, whether it's about the P card spending, and the recent vote of no confidence from CT State, Senate. And, I just want to make sure I have a chance to kind of speak directly to you and hear from you. Again, I am happy to answer questions. That might be the best way to approach it right now. But I'm also, again, like, there's only one version of the story, right? It's the truth. I will always tell you the truth. And I would just want to make sure there's no ambiguity around certain things. I will say that two things, first and foremost. I'm sorry that all of this activity leads to taking focus away from the students. It takes focus away from doing the work for our institutions and for the students. And I feel horribly about it, right? I've said that publicly. I've said that privately. I've said that to our legislators, to our board members, to our own faculty and staff. My job is to try to represent you guys well and to get as many resources as possible for all of you. And anything that I do that takes away from that, whether it's intentional or not, is still my responsibility. And so I am sorry that that is the case. I'm sorry that it has led to this. I want to make sure that you hear directly from me anything that needs to be kind of cleared up related to, potential allegations. So let me just leave it there, Luis, and folks can ask me whatever they want, and we'll just kind of talk about it.
Yeah, perfect. So it's very, very important discussion. I know we have a tight agenda, so we'll get right into the questions, guys. So feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or comments, and we'll get going. Let's see. Who wants to start the discussion? Yeah.
Hi, good morning. So I don't know if it correlates directly towards you, Chancellor Chang, but because Chelsea and you are on the call, I wanted to have clarity kind of how we presented ourselves through Zoom, because for the appropriations meeting that recently happened, just because I know you had came on the call December, and the discussion was for the testimonies that we would be there, which honestly, if I'm being honest, when I heard that it was on Zoom, that I thought all campuses, UConn included, everyone would be on Zoom. And then when I got on and realized that UConn was actually there, and then honestly, when another student from Naugatuck Valley was like, "You did great," and I was like, "Oh, you were there?" I just think it was kind of I don't know, I feel like it made us look bad personally for us to all be on Zoom. So I'm wondering where does that tie in and how did that go on? That's my concern right now.
I'll pop
Yeah.
in quick just
Yeah. Go ahead, Chelsea.
because
Yeah.
the legislators wanted to make it equitable for all CSCU students. So they wanted everybody to be able to present via Zoom. However, going forward, I think they wanted everybody to be on Zoom because it's easier for them, honestly, to be able to just go 1, 2, 3 on Zoom rather than having somebody in person, somebody on Zoom, somebody in person, somebody on Zoom. It was a preference of the committee itself. However, that doesn't mean that we can't have a preference of our own. Mm-hmm. So I think going forward, while this might be a preference of the committee, I think I'm going to take the time to work with them to see how they can be a bit more agreeable to having some of our students in person if and when they can.
Only reason why I'm saying that is because Connecticut is only but like 2 hours from top to bottom. I'm not trying to be funny. Like I've lived in states that are
True.
actually large, so it's not like the hardest thing to get the people that were testifying to be there. Honestly, if only reason why I'm saying that is in the sense of with my questions now with funds, and then why wouldn't we just get people there? Like that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I'm like I said, for someone to hit me up like, "Oh, you did great," which honestly, I looked at myself. I did absolutely terrible because I suck at video conferencing. You can't even hear the word. If I'm being on, no, this is my take on it. This is my take on it. You
All
can't
right.
even hear what I'm saying because I'm looking every which way and I'm trying to engage and I don't have an engagement because I'm on the screen, which is part of the reason why we're supposed to be there to give this touch. And then you send us an email for the 25th, which honestly, I would love to redeem myself to anyone who might have seen me on that thing, in the sense, because in person I do a lot better than ever on a camera. So I'm just I can admit like that has been something where I've just been like, we looked so, I feel like we didn't, like, it was like I'm seeing UConn there. I'm seeing them very present, and I'm their president. I forgot her name. The redhead just amazing. All of them, because they're there. And it was just like, so if I'm thinking about funds in that sense, I'm thinking what is going on? Where is the disconnect? Why couldn't we get like, I'm sorry, but yeah. So yeah.
Well, Nia, listen, I agree with you, and I always appreciate your candor and your passion, right? And that's what we need. We need to hear from you all as student leaders what your feelings are. So I'll just add a little bit of context. What Chelsea said is correct, right? Like behind the scenes, we talk to the legislators, we try to make it palatable for them because they have a lot going on and we are their constituents and so forth. I'll tell you historically, as we've gone through these travails with going to appropriations and whatnot, in the past, UConn has come. So when they bring people, sometimes they'll bring like a whole bus. They got the dog on the side, they got all this stuff. And to be quite frank, it has looked bad in the past because they come up in there trying to ask for money, but they got the branded bus that costs probably $200,000. They got all this coordination. Our coordination is different because we have multiple campuses, multiple institutions trying to come together. And so there is a bit of efficiency through the technology. And historically, so Senator Austin in the past, she's actually noted 2 years in a row. She didn't this year, but she noted 2 years in a row. She said, I just want to note that the CSCU students aren't here in person because they don't have a bus to get on and be driven over. Like, she's been real sharp about that in the past, right? And in a way, it's worked to our favor. But I also hear exactly what you're saying. And so, with your feedback and other people's feedback, we want to put our best foot forward. We don't want to look second class. We don't want to look like punks next to UConn and their white medical jacket coats and all that kind of stuff. I'm with you with that. Okay. So we got to continue to improve for sure.
I see Jaleel has his hand up.
Hey, thanks for noticing. I just want to say a little sidebar, but I literally interned there, and I'm sorry I didn't get into testimony for the appropriation committee, but like in the future, I am more than capable of doing that. Another question is, do we have like a template so it can look more professional when we do the testimonies, or?
I can provide a template. The problem is, it's not really a problem. The problem is there is the way that you address committee members is specific to each committee. There are different members in each one. So I can provide an easy way to do it is good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to esteemed members of the X, whatever committee you're presenting to. And then you go into your story. But we can provide I can provide a PDF version of kind of overviews that show this group. So I can send it to Tam and Louise to get it sent around to this group of examples of testimony that students gave the other night so that you guys can see it.
Yeah. I think that would be really helpful for everybody, like inside the call at the moment. But like more importantly, I was talking about like for like an emblem, something like that, just to represent.
Oh, the background, like a background. I see what you're saying.
I think that would be really nice because I did a testimony for fair housing not too long ago. It went pretty well, but
I
yeah,
got
I
that
think
too.
that
Let me send that. I think I have backgrounds. I have a background, a CSU background that has each and every one of our institutions on it that I
Mhm.
think would be cool for all. Let me share that too.
Yeah, definitely. Julie, you're going to say something else. Go ahead.
Oh no, that is all. That is all. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. I know Cheyenne, you wanted to chime in for a little. Or
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you, Luis. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who know me or who do not know me, my name is Cheyenne Arlington. I am a sophomore at CT State as Nuntuck, majoring in business administration, and I am also Madam Vice Chair of the SAC committee. So I have a question for Chancellor Chang. Hi, Chancellor Chang. So, given everything that has, gone on,
Yeah.
things in the media, things said in public, private, whatever the case may be, how does CT State plan on moving forward in a healthy manner as a whole? Because we are united whether we like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I may, I'd like to just take a moment to address some of the more specific things that we have and I have been kind of called out on, right? Because again, I just want to be like really, really honest with you guys, because if I can't be honest with you, I can't be honest with anybody, and I'm honest with myself and everybody else around me, because you guys deserve to know the story, right? I think the primary criticisms of me have been that I spent about $30,000 in the past 3 years, okay? $30,000 in the past 3 years for professional purposes on my state purchasing card, okay? That has included meals, business meals, and travel are the predominant areas, right? So let me address that real quick. So I have been criticized for that spending, and I think the symbol of that has been specific meals where, I went with like CEOs or donors to a steakhouse, right? And steakhouse is a little pricey, okay? And I'll just speak to that for a second and say, and I'm not trying to sound defensive, but I know it might come off like that a little bit. But I will say that if you juxtapose my spending as a chancellor that represents multiple campuses and 85,000 students at about $10,000-$12,000 a year, my understanding and knowledge of the industry over the past 25 years is that it's actually not terribly high, right? If you look at a lot of private and other public institutions, the spending is significantly higher. That being said, we don't have a high functioning CSCU foundation against which my spending could be leveraged, right? Usually, like the Yukon Foundation or other institutional foundations, pick up the costs of a leader's spending in that way. Because we don't have a foundation, I was utilizing within policy, without breaking policy and without breaking any laws or regulations, I was utilizing my P card according to the policy. Okay. But that being said, I also own the fact that it's a bad look, right? I think that's really what it comes down to. I know we got students that rely on the food pantries. We got students that are working 2, 3, 4 jobs trying to pay their tuition. And I know it's a bad look for the chancellor to be out there having steak dinners while our students are going without in a lot of different ways. And that's on me, okay? That's a judgment error that I made, and I own that. I have to be accountable for that. And again, the thing that hurts me the most is that my actions, whether they were intended or not, they're out there on our behalf. They're out there on our students' behalf, trying to create internships, partnerships, relationships, opportunities. But at the end of the day, that perception is bad, right? And that's my fault. And so I have to own that. And I apologize deeply for that to you all first and foremost, okay? I have to make sure that you all hear me clearly on that. And I sincerely, sincerely mean that. And I won't make those mistakes again because I don't want to embarrass you guys and I don't want to embarrass my institutions, the faculty, and the people that I'm here to represent. So that's one of the first things. But I want to also be clear. We have been audited now by the state comptroller. We have had a review by the auditors of public accounts, and both of them have found that no laws were broken, no policies were breached, but that there were material weaknesses in some of our policies that have to be addressed. And so we are now enacting new policies, a purchasing card policy that is not strict. It is not flexible at all. Let's just put it that way. And when that passes the board, it's going to be hardcore for me. It's going to be hardcore for everybody, right? And that's a good thing. I don't think that's, and I don't take that as punitive at all. I think that's learning how to do our business better. All right. The second thing that I would say, and Chelsea, you should feel free to chime in when I forget what a third or a fourth thing might be, because I want to make sure we get it all on the table. A second thing that has come up has been my residency, right? I have a contract that basically says that I'm to establish a home in Connecticut, okay? I looked into moving my family in my first year when I was here, all right? And I was receiving, according to my contract, a reimbursement on relocation funds. After that first year, after analyzing the needs of my family and after analyzing my ability to do the job, I determined that I wasn't going to move my family. We live 6 minutes away from the Connecticut border, literally 6 minutes away, and very like right next to Fairfield County. And I decided that I was going to rent an apartment in Hartford that would allow me to basically perform my duties as a chancellor. So I have a 12-month lease on an apartment, pay for parking, all those things. We've provided all that documentation to the comptroller, to the media, to everybody who's asked for it. So I have a second residence in Connecticut that I pay for, and I also maintain my primary residence in New York. Okay, so I think it has been painted a certain way that I don't, quote unquote, work in Connecticut. The reality is I have a family. I have 2 daughters, I have a wife, and I'm trying to maintain the well-being of my family while also performing the duties of the chancellor at a high level. And to be quite honest, I think it's disingenuous for folks to try to portray that I am not in Connecticut. If you see anything, you see that I'm all over Connecticut, right? And that's where the job is, and that's where I do that job, and I do it very proudly. Chelsea, I feel like I'm missing a couple things. You want to just fill in a blank or two?
I'm trying to also think that the only thing that I could think of is talking about payments that were made or what not should have been paid for.
Oh, right.
The payment that they refer to is actually the chancellor's rent for his 12-month lease. And then there might have been another one that was related to overpayment or something where they were accusing the chancellor of not paying something back that is patently false and has already been in progress for a while.
Right.
And so a lot of these things have morphed beyond kind of the scope of focus on our students and have become more political. However, we and myself, especially yesterday, have had a lot of conversations with high-ranking officials who are big advocates for us, and they are ready to move forward, shift this narrative, and put it back on the people that we're actually representing and who will truly be affected, which is all of you guys. And I think that we're finally beginning to see that shift amongst legislators now that we're starting to kind of get towards crunch time, which is when the legislature will present their budget, which will be in April.
Yeah. Let me just jump in, Chelsea.
Yeah,
I'll say, like, we need to keep our eyes on the prize, right? My job is to advocate for our system at the highest level and to the best of my abilities to get us the resources that we and you need and deserve. And like I said, my mistakes, even though they weren't illegal and they didn't break policy, they're still mistakes, right? And if you're going to be a professional and you're going to be grown, you got to look at that, and I have to look at that and say, what could have I done better? What should I have done better? And not make those mistakes again, right? Hard stop. Just don't make those mistakes again, right? So that will not happen again, right? Because I can't dishonor you and I can't hurt our ability to get you all the resources that you need. So I take that dead serious. And so those mistakes won't be happening again. And I have apologized sincerely to our legislature, publicly and privately, in testimony and so forth, on multiple occasions, and I will continue to do so. I've done it in the media. I will continue to do so because whatever it takes for us to know that in my office, myself, there is accountability. There has to be accountability, right? And there has to be change. And so we have changed policy. We have reduced the number of P cards. We are strengthening and making more stringent our operations. I myself, will be spending as little as possible, related to my operations and my moving around the state and so on and so forth. So I just want you to know that we take this very seriously. We hold ourselves accountable. I hold myself accountable. And again, I just wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to hear that from me, but also that to be able to ask me questions, right? Because you all as student leaders are going to be asked questions. And I want you to have from me the real scoop. Okay. So I think, Julia, I see your hand up.
Right. I was there at the committee meeting with the comptroller and the state auditor. So I'm wondering, I've seen a list of recommendations that the comptroller recommended. So which ones, if you know at the top of your head, which ones are you planning to implement and which ones are you not?
Yeah. So the comptroller's office actually did a great job. Okay. And I mean that sincerely. And I like the comptroller a lot. He's a really, really good person. We've had conversations about our families and everything. So I just want you to know there's no animus, there's no tension. Like, he's doing his job, right? The first and foremost was to tighten up the policies themselves. Okay. And that policy will be voted on at the board meeting next week. And again, it's a super tight policy. And if you wanted to see it, we could send you versions of what the previous policies were versus what they are going to be. They will be in effect this spring for myself and everyone across the board. That's number one. Okay. Number two,
Yeah.
You go ahead, Luis.
Yeah. I think it'd be awesome if we can just get like even a Word document with the policies that are being put in place. That way we can share it just to the general student population here at SAC, and then they can delay that information to their campuses as well. That way they see that like there's implementation being put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen now or to future leaders as well. And I think, I think either Chelsea can send it to me or Tam can send it to me.
Yeah,
And
it was presented to yesterday. The plan was discussed and talked about at the Board of Regents finance meeting.
We'll get you the summaries and the notes and the details on that. Okay, so that includes the policy, and that also includes training. Okay, another thing to know is that Jalil, we've actually taken down the number of purchasing cards across the system. They have already been reduced by 18%. All right. And so just the pure volume of P cards that are out there, we've already knocked that down by 18%. And we're going to continue to squeeze and knock that down through even greater scrutiny, right? The board yesterday talked about more accountability measures, just making sure that like people don't just like sit through a webinar of like how to use the card, right? There are in the policy, there are reviews, multiple levels of review. And so a lot of this, I think, is in the comptroller's report, and so we're taking action on the things that are most immediate, which is the policy, which is reducing the number of P cards and establishing very good training. And then we're going to continue to review. We actually have a meeting coming up next week with all of our presidents, just so you know, to review the comptrollers and other reports that are out there on different things. We're reviewing that with our presidents to go through additional things we can add to our operations. Okay? Great.
Nia has her hand up. Chancellor.
Yep. Hi, Nia.
Hi. Yes. So about the presidents, I mean, I recently heard that the CEOs are coming down and the presidents are kind of changing for different campuses, and in a sense it's centralizing. How exactly is that going? Also, in the fact that the Danbury campus is now going to be connected to Housatonic, so rather than Naugatuck Valley. So it's just I'm just looking for some clarity on those lines and what's happening.
Tamara, we should get some high level documentation from CT State and distribute that through SAC about all those moves. But I'll talk you through the broad stuff real quick. So historically, every campus has had its own campus leadership, right? They used to be campus presidents and they became campus CEOs. And now President Maduko is going to enact a multi-campus per leader model. Right now, some campuses will maintain their own individual leader and not have a multi-campus model, such as Gateway, because Gateway is our largest campus and institution within CT State. And I think there are a few others that, for certain strategic reasons, have one president. But a few things to know. We have received pressure, rightfully so, to reduce administrative overhead costs. What does that mean? We have too many managers who cost a lot of money. Okay, like that's just flat out. Okay, so heard, understood, taking those perspectives very seriously, both myself and President Maduko. So President Maduko has looked at things nationally. Some of our most successful community colleges in the country actually have multi-campus one president models, right? I think of Ivy Tech, and they are very successful and they've made it work for years. What this alignment does is reduce overhead costs, reduce the number of managers, and then actually allow for the multiple campuses to leverage each other. Right. And so let's say you have facilities folks who are down, you have security folks who are down, and maybe you even have faculty that you have shortages in. It allows people within I would say a small radius, right? Nothing more than, let's say, maybe 15, 20 miles, maybe 30 miles tops, to access the campuses and to allow the students to also access different resources there too. So we're trying to achieve multiple things: cost savings, managerial shrinkage, as well as more efficient operations. I realize this is a big change, and President Maduko certainly realizes this is a big change from the past, and it might feel like things are being taken away, but I trust in his sensibilities and his ability to kind of execute this properly. The last thing I'll say is that this is not punitive against the current leaders. This is an evolution of the system, right? This is an evolution of CT State. So none of the leaders are being, current leaders are being just flat out released. This is not about cause and just saying like, oh, you're not good at your job. It's not about that. This is about a structural reorganization. And so there is a fair and equitable process of application that's going to be put into place. And it's not going to be easy in that it's a big change, but I think it's the right way to go. President Maduko has my support in this. He has the board support in this. And we believe it's going to be a good thing for the institution in the long run.
So in response to that, my then question is, since we're reducing the cost by that management, where would the money be going? Because are we getting more teachers on campus for that? Are we getting better what are we talking, like the surveys, we're talking about like our elevators at all the campuses that were in that committee. Like it's just all the stuff that is one campus we're all complaining about apparently. And apparently even like, I don't even know some presidents are, because I definitely reviewed that recently. The same complaints they have are the same complaints we have. And so now that if we're reducing the cost by then centralized, like, 20, 30 miles, which is some distance, which once again, that's
Yeah.
even worse than, on a consistent basis rather than a one night thing to get students to one place. Sorry, still really agitated about that. But yeah, so I'm just wondering then, where is the funds then going?
Yeah, I mean, look, the goal is to try to save money where we can and ultimately get more funds and resources in front of students and helping faculty and staff, right? We just had this conversation yesterday about, system office reserves, without boring you with the crazy financial stuff. Long story short, if we have reserves that we can free up and get back in front of students and to our campuses, that's what we want to do. And I think it's President Maduko's goal to obviously have as many resources back in front of students on campuses, right? So the leadership is one thing, but it is about the faculty, it is about the staff, it is about the people who are serving the students every single day. What I'm going to recommend, and I think Louise, Cheyenne, Tamara, I would say it might behoove this group to have President Maduko come and do a talk, right, to talk through this, because I'm not going to represent his vision as well as he can, right? And I think that would be helpful. He did that yesterday in appropriations, or the other day in appropriations committee as well. And I thought that was really helpful. I'm getting texted that I need to jump into this cabinet meeting because they're about to start talking about federal stuff, which, again, we can talk about more as well. Last thing I'll say, folks, is I really appreciate all your work. I appreciate the space you've given me to just kind of have a conversation. I'm available to any and all of you to answer any other questions that come up along the way about whatever's going on in any space, whether it's related to stuff in the media or our day-to-day operations. I want you to know that we're present, we're here, and you are our partners in this, okay? You are leaders. We view you as colleagues in this conversation. And so please don't, I know you're not afraid to use your voices, but I encourage you to just keep using them. All right. Because we're here. Because we're here.
You at all? Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, go ahead.
Is this not the type of thing that we would vote on as SAC representatives? Like our voting power should be sort of inputted into this, should it not?
What are you referring to specifically?
The shift of presidencies. I think that's something that directly affects the student body. And
yeah, I don't know what the bylaws are. I will say that when we looked at this is under the auspices, right? It falls under the aegis of administration to make this kind of reorganization and budgetary decision. That being said, it does have a student impact, right? Potentially, it does have impacts across the board. And, you're right. Like maybe this could have or should have been discussed a little more broadly before final decisions were made. But as I certainly know, hindsight is always 20/20. But I think this is also where a good conversation with the CT state president might be really valuable, right? But I think Malachi, you're bringing up an excellent point.
Yeah. So, all right. First of all, I know Chancellor has to bounce, but thank you so much.
Thank
you. I just want to give you some props for coming through and being willing to accept potentially very tough questions. I'm sure you're being grilled by the media as of late. Alasa, you're probably used to it, but thank you so much for just coming through, talking to us like individuals, like students. And Malachi, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up a meeting with President Maduko to make sure all these questions that we have are addressed, right? And we do have voting power, right? Cheyenne and I are sitting in the board, right? And we are a voice for you guys, right? So if we all come up in a consensus of like, hey, I don't think this is a good idea, and we look at the facts and we look at both sides, right, and the effect that can potentially have on students, then we'll make sure to align with you guys, right? So thank you so much, Chancellor. for your time. And with that being said, we'll get right into the agenda. We have a pretty tight agenda. I don't want to keep everyone. We might have to table some items for the following meeting, but I just want to make sure that there was a conversation with the chancellor regarding a lot of the noise surrounding the system, and I hope this was a little bit clarifying in regards with what's been going on. And like I said, there's a lot of changes going on right now, and Chelsea, is there any way we can get information regarding the CT State, what they're trying to do with their leadership, as well as like the new procurement measures put in place for the P cards? That way I can share this to the rest of the SAC.
So I don't want to speak on behalf of CT State, so I think that it'd be fantastic. And I know President Maduka would be willing to meet with you guys. And so I think just having him here directly and having you be able to pose questions to him and have him directly respond would be the best way. Yep. But two, I already reached out to some folks just to make sure that we can get you the most updated version of the overall arching policies that are being implemented, as well as the P card policies that are being implemented. I just have to make sure that the documents that we have can be shared because they were voted on by or discussed at the finance part of the BOR yesterday.
They're not
but
finalized
I know that we have
yet. They're not finalized yet, so they're not for because they haven't gone through the board yet.
That's exactly right. So once they get approved by the board, we'll send it your way like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys can hear a lot of it. I can actually, Louise and Tim, I just sent an email that has examples of student testimony, public speaking tips, and a Zoom background. Let me follow up with the link to the BOR meeting so you guys can watch it if you want to hear specifically kind of back and forth in dialogue about what those policies are, because the BOR members yesterday posed questions to our general counsel and chief compliance officer. And so you can hear the detailed questions and answers of what those policies are and will be. Well, one thing I did want to leave you with after the chancellor just popped off is politics is interesting because there's what you see in the media and things that politicians have to say or do. And then there's the conversations that we have in person. These folks want to support us. They know how important our institutions are. Given what's going on with the federal government, it is very hard to figure out what our state budget will look like, as that changes every second of every day. And I want to acknowledge that it's scary. And I can't imagine what it's like as young people getting your education at a time like this. However, we are working every day with these folks. They know the importance. It's just a matter of how much we can work to secure for the system. That's what it really, really comes down to. The importance of your guys' value and our impact is not lost upon these people. While it may sound like a lot of noise, you guys are not getting lost in this when we have these conversations one-on-one behind the scenes with legislators. And I just want to make that clear and kind of like ease some of your guys' concerns. It is difficult when we have to work around the parameters of legislators' preferences. To your point, Nia, like the not attending in person, it's very tricky trying to make folks who have the keys to the purse strings happy and not push or push too much. However, what our students want and what our students need kind of trumps everything. And so I think going forward, I'm going to take that into consideration and actually bring it up to them the next time I see them. But I just wanted to hit you guys with that. And I'm going to send Louise a follow-up of the BOR recording so that you guys can at least see that and hear about the policies before we send the actual document. And once it's finalized, we'll send it your way.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And to Nia's point,
thank you, Chelsea.
I definitely agree. I think if there's any way to we can have some in-person presence. The appropriations committee, I think. I mean, I'm the same way. I think I'm way better talking in person than I am virtually, so I can see that being an issue. So yeah, I think your feedback is very much heard, and I think there is definitely going to be changes implemented moving forward in regards with that. Awesome. So with that being said, thank you so much. I know that a lot of people are heading out. Um, we'll just jump right into the
I'm
bylaws.
going to jump in and just say I'd like this group to talk about the bylaws. We need to do them over the course of 2 meetings and have them reviewed so that we can then get them to the BOR for approval for changes. So if we could just look at the bylaws as a group quickly and spend the next 9 minutes discussing the proposed changes at this meeting, and our next meeting will be March 28th. And I'm going to stop there and let you go and do that.
Perfect. So this is going to be presented by our Vice Chair Cheyenne and her committee, who have been working very diligently to get this happen, make this a reality. Like Tom said, per bylaws, it's needed to go through 2 meetings for us to be able to get this approved and through. So what we'll do is we'll focus on the bylaws today. I know that everyone has to do school, work, whatever other obligations. So we'll just focus on this item, and we'll table all of the other items for next meeting. And you'll be seeing, if you haven't done so yet, we're still working on the 2 committees, the bylaw committee and the survey committee. So if you're not part of any of them, please reach out, send me an email, and be like, hey, I would like to be in this meeting. We'll add it to the invite. That way you can be in the discussion and you can put your input into this. This is all a collective effort. I just want to emphasize on that. This is not Cheyenne leading. This is not me leading. This is all of us leading and making this a reality. So I hope to have more input from this. That way, the more varying perspectives we have, I think the better outcome we'll have, and we'll make sure that all sides are heard and addressed to make sure that we don't neglect anyone. So with that being said, Cheyenne, I'll stop talking and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Louise. I appreciate you. Good morning again, everyone. So I spearheaded the bylaws committee with our lovely group of members, Nia, Madison, Donna, and Michelle. I know that we are on a time crunch, and I did email out this document to everyone. So I don't want to make it seem like, we're gypping you because of the time crunch. But as of right now, the new version of the bylaws are in tip-top shape. We just have to, comb through it again, probably a couple more times with a fine-tooth comb. But essentially, the content, the simplifying of the language, clarifications, as well as, the difference between CT State Technical College to, changing the name to the accurate conglomerate, that has been updated with the bylaws. I don't know if we want to look at each article, but I did include at the end of this document additional provisions, an addendum that has definitions that some of our students raised concerns about, as well as a question document that I would like us to discuss and eventually vote on, but obviously not in the next 7 minutes. So if the ladies from my group want to chime in on what they feel is best, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think we got Nia and Donna here as well. So if you guys want to give some comments as well, that'd be awesome. Go ahead,
everyone.
Nia. You have.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I was just looking over them and everything. I think that it's a great setup because last time I know it was just a bunch of things kind of just mumble jumbled together. But I think that it's a good start, and I think that, the questions are very important. I feel like we should really definitely touch on those as soon as possible because I think those are important things, and I like the definitions too. Those were great. That's what I want to say.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else that wants to chime in?
Donna?
I agree because of the limited time. I think we need to just jump right to the questions because if we need to do further clarification or editing of the bylaws before we take it to Pam with the Board of Regents, we need to narrow down some of those things. We talked a lot about meeting attendance. I don't know if that's something that you wanted to emphasize or pull out that question if we can't get through all of these, but I think you just ought to roll through the questions and have people submit, whatever they want to say as we're going through them real quick.
Sure. All right. So question number one, how do we all feel about the bylaws being read or posted for viewing at each meeting? They can also be sent out with meeting notes for follow-up. But my question would be, would this cause redundancy, or do we not mind having it, side by side with our meeting notes?
Let's see. I know that for me personally, I'll start the discussion and then we can kind of let everyone in. I think having the bylaws will be important, even if after every meeting. You don't have to open the document every time, but it'll be a good reminder to everyone of kind of the standard and what's to be expected at each meeting. So anyone else wants to chime in, please feel free.
Thank you, Luis.
Louise, that's generally what we discussed. The main reason we talked about sending it out or having a place where it's stored is that, if you have a representative that's not able to attend and they have a substitute come in, they may not be familiar with it. I told Cheyenne this was my first time ever seeing the bylaws, and I've been doing this for 2 years now. So we thought, well, it couldn't hurt to just get it with your notes every month, because if you've seen it, great, you can just move on. But if somebody's substituting for you and they don't even know how this works, maybe having that information would just fill it in a little bit better. So I think more communication is better than none, but that was kind of what the committee came up with. So if someone doesn't have an objection to that, it's not something we have to add to the bylaws. It was just more of a procedural question.
Yeah,
Thank you,
think so far everyone seems to be in agreement. So I think, yeah, great question put in place. Love it.
Next question was, if all agreed upon, would you provide your signature stating that you have read the SAC document, aka our bylaws, and agree to its terms, just for accountability purposes?
Yeah, that's a good question to put in place. One thing that is being floating around is the role of the SAC, right? The role that it plays. I feel like it hasn't been really communicated very clearly, and that's upon me. I mean, to be fair, there wasn't really any information when I started as well. So as I've gone through the years, just watching behind and just hearing the meetings, it's kind of being more clear what the role is. But I don't want it to be the case moving forward, right? I want to make sure that everyone knows very clearly, hey, what's the role of the SAC? Why it is important to be well informed for each of the campuses, right? And I think we were having a discussion in the SAC survey. I know Anna was there, and a bunch of other students, but it's not very clear what the SAC is, right? Which is kind of crazy, right? Because we're all in this meeting right now, and I feel like not everyone knows exactly what the role is. So moving forward, I would love to have beginning of the meeting a brief presentation regarding the role, the influence, and maybe we can attach that information to each of the meetings. That way, like, people can debrief themselves exactly the importance. Why is it so important, right? Because we serve as a subcommittee of the board, and we have 2 voting members that could potentially impact tuition raises, policies put in place across the system, even decisions made at CT State or at each of the state universities, right? So the reality is that if we all put together and we all get together under the same vision, right, we can create a lot of impact that can potentially shift the whole system as a whole. So I just want to put that out there and make it very clear. We're working on it, and I want to make sure that moving forward, after I leave, it's very clear what the role of the SAC is for everyone that comes in moving forward.
Okay. Thank you, Luis, for that. So your response kind of ties into question number 3. I wrote, would you be open in participating in providing more awareness about SAC? And I think we have a universal yes from the group at this moment about, promoting SAC, as well as, providing more clarity on our campuses about SAC. We do have to take a pause here. I know that lots of things are going on this Friday, and some of our members did unfortunately have to leave. But for our next SAC meeting, we could either pick up where we left or potentially schedule a separate meeting. Louise and Tamara, do you want to chime in on that decision making?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is next meeting. First of all, based on the conversation we had today, I definitely want to get President Maduco here because I think it's very important that he hears the student inputs about like the decision that is being made on leadership, since it's going to be a drastic shift from the current system to something completely new. So I want to make sure that like any questions and concerns that are out there, they're addressed directly by him, right? And yeah, I think it'll be very helpful if we can schedule a bi-weekly meeting, potentially. So moving forward, that way we can narrow down on this. We have a lot to get done, and we're only limited with, we're very limited with the amount of, since we meet once a month, it's very hard to accomplish anything in a monthly meeting. So I think potentially doing a bi-weekly meeting every 2 weeks might be very helpful to get through the bylaws, the survey, and make sure the SGA business happen and the virtual community connections happen as well. So if everyone's in agreement with that, that'd be awesome. We'll really appreciate you being there. And I don't want to take more time. Okay, I know a lot of people have SGA meetings today, so we'll
We're going
end
to
the
stop
meeting.
our recording and we will send an email out requesting a possible bi-weekly meeting coming up.
Yes.
Have a good weekend, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording. Hold on. Stop recording.
I know, Victor, you have your hand up.